What's going on, Jerome's? The NFL draft is at the end of the month, but free agency is still out there hanging out. And there's a couple of names that the Vikings could still add to the rooster to help fortify some positions, especially since the Vikings only have 5 draft picks. And even though the Vikings have the least amount of cap space in the NFL, there's always ways to free up some cap space. I know, trading Dalvin, getting rid of Za'Darius. I don't know. There's lots of ways to go about it. So here are 10. Like, what wave are we on? Third or fourth wave? Whatever. 10 free agents for the Vikings. Write me out. Number 1, OG Dalton Reisner. Yes. I've been hammering this forever. I loved him at Kansas State. I love his versatility. He can play center, can play guard, can play tackle. Last 4 years, he's been a left guard starter for the Broncos, and he's just out there chilling in free agency. And I understand Ezra, but he's in a contract year. I understand Ed Ingram, second-round pick last year. Wasn't great. But I understand that Kwesi's going to give him the latitude since he was his draft pick. I do not care. Bring in Dalton Reisner, automatically adds some competition, adds depth, also can play some center in case Bradbury falters. I will absolutely love and adore if the Vikings picked up the pride of Kansas State this free agency cycle. Next up, free agent number 2 for the Vikings. Quarterback Marcus Peters. Yes, the one who got away in 2015 when the Vikings took Trey Waynes at 11. Marcus Peters is out there chilling. Yes, there was a lot of questions. Yes, had he been kicked off of Washington? Yes, blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, Marcus Peters still doing the damn thing. And maybe he's not the same shutdown guy that he was in Kansas City for a number of years, that he was in Baltimore at the start. But he is still a solid outside-the-numbers cornerback, and he's still a guy that still has a lot to give. And plus, I don't think that he's going to break the bank. I actually think it's likely that he returns to Baltimore, but also I don't think that he's going to cost an exorbitant amount of money. Now, there's not a long-term solution, so maybe Kwesi would be out. Yes, he is on the wrong side of 30, so in that regard, maybe Kwesi would just be like, fair. But another guy who is on the right side of 30, cornerback Rock Ya-Sin, of course, coming out of Temple, second-round pick. Didn't work out with the Colts, but he had a rebirth last year with the Raiders in Vegas. 5 passes broken up, 82.5 quarterback rating, 65.8 PFF coverage grade. And I think that he's a guy that, given his length on the outside, given his man skills, would be perfect with Brian Flores, and plus it would free up Byron Murphy to play a lot more slot where he is the most adept. And with Ya-Sin as well as Evans as well as Booth, I mean that's a nice 3-headed trio on the outside in terms of long, lengthy outside the numbers corner. Next up, free agent number 4 for the Vikings, offensive tackle Isaiah Wynn. Now, again, what usually happens with these free agent lists is that I just list the guys that I had draft crushes on. So Isaiah Wynn was at Georgia. Now, the prevailing thinking was he was going to kick inside because he had shortish arms, right? So that whole thing. But he missed his rookie year due to injury, but then he started at left tackle for the Patriots and was pretty damn solid. I mean, big props to Dante Scarnecchia for getting him good to go, but faded as of late. They moved him over to right tackle last year. It was sort of whatever. But 2018 first rounder. And there's always been talk about him kicking inside. And I think that's something that the Vikings could look at. I think that he would be a lot more economical than even a guy like Dalton Reisner. I think Isaiah Wynn is going to be on a very cheap prove-it deal, maybe even league minimum with some incentives. Plus, I mean, I think that he could be Brian O'Neill insurance, even though the Vikings re-signed, the exclusive rights free agents, Blake Brandel, and then they re-signed Oli Udoh to basically a 1-year guaranteed deal. Having Isaiah Wynn in the fold, the Vikings' offensive line depth was severely tested last year, and having a guy like Wynn, who has started in the league, has played at a high level around the league, would make a lot of sense in this spot. Next up, free agent number 5 for the Vikings, wide receiver Richie James. That's right. Again, just goes back to draft crushes. I loved him coming out of Middle Tennessee State. I like what he did against the Gophers a couple years ago. 7th-round pick, formerly of the Niners. And, of course, I only want him because I could be like, I'm Rich James, bitch. That's it, man. But he did have that drop in the wild card game, which would have ended it against the Vikings. And, of course, you never doubt, hey, this guy played XYZ against us scouting. But, last year, he did really well with the Giants. 68 catches, 651 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. I think that he could and should be in the Vikings wide receiver mix. I think that he would be a nice wide receiver 3, clearly slotting in behind KJ. I think that given his flexibility and willingness to go over the middle, I think would be a nice complement to what KJ and JJ and TJ bring to the table. And also, I don't think that he would be exceedingly expensive to bring him in. Next up, Free agent number 6 for the Vikings, defensive tackle Duane Smoot of the Jaguars. So he is 28, but for years he's always been this solid pass rushing defensive tackle. 11 sacks, 86 pressures over the last 2 seasons. He's a guy that could play multiple spots on the inside, could play in an even or odd front, and he's a guy that just has a nose for getting after the quarterback with quick interior pressure. Now, he's not going to break the bank. He's not going to get insane money, but I think that he would be a really solid 1-year pickup. His game actually really reminds me a lot of, say, Sheldon Richardson. Of course, us Vikings fans love us some Sheldon Richardson, so Duane Smoot would be a guy to watch. Next up, free agent number 7 for the Vikings. Sticking with cornerback Shaquille Griffin, formerly of the Seahawks, former third-round pick coming on in recently of the Jaguars, got himself paid a little bit. But, last year, he had a back injury, cost him most of the season. Jaguars parted ways with him. He had a really solid 2021, a 71.1 PFF coverage grade. Lengthy on the outside. Also is still relatively young at 27. Bit surprising that it hasn't been picked up yet, but maybe he's just waiting to see what happens with the draft. Maybe he's trying to eke out a couple of extra shekels here or there. But Shaquille Griffin, really solid pickup at this stage of free agency. Next up, free agent number 8 for the Vikings, Jaylon. That's right, Jaylon Smith, Notre Dame stud, formerly of the Cowboys, had a hot cup of coffee with the Packers and then ended up with the Giants. You're not going to get much from him in coverage, but what you do get is a rock-solid 2-down run-stuffing linebacker. Now, I understand, maybe Jaylon and Jordan Hicks have too much crossover there, but Jaylon, he's not going to be expensive. He does have good leadership and is a guy that is going to be in the middle, is a guy that's going to secure tackles, and maybe having Jaylon Smith as well as Jordan Hicks there allows Asamoah to go out and do Asamoah things. So, something to look at there. Next up, free agent number 9 for the Vikings. Number 9, defensive tackle Punee Ford, Seahawks, 27. Right, so I love Punee Ford, the pride of Texas. Was really shocked when he went undrafted a handful of years ago. And he did have a down 2022, but his first 3 years of his career were really solid, man, in terms of he's a good mix of pass rush as well as run stuffing. Can play nose, can play 3-tech, can play 4-tech, can play everything. He's 5'11", which is not a knock against him. A low man wins down in the trenches, and he uses leverage well. 310 pounds. He's a guy that, when the Vikings have played the Seahawks, Punee Ford's done well. And I think that I would absolutely love and adore if Punee was added to the Vikings defensive line mix. Lastly, free agent number 10 for the Vikings. Let's just throw a dart. Out there. So I understand Kenny Golladay was a major disappointment on his 4-year, $72 million deal with the Giants. It's embarrassing when you get demoted to wide receiver 4 or 5, but he is still 6'4". He is still 213, and his time in Detroit was very good. Us Vikings fans remember Kenny Golladay, back in the day, 2018, 2019, had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. 2019, 65 catches, 1,190 yards, receiving 11 touchdowns. He was that guy. He was that dude. And I think that, given a change of scenery, could Kevin O'Connell, could Keenan McCardle bring out the best of Kenny Golladay? Sure. And the Vikings, the reason why we wanted a guy like DJ Chark is we wanted size on the outside, because Kirk needs a tall receiver. And Kenny Golladay, could be it. Plus, he's going to be cheap. Wherever he signs, it's going to be a dirt-ass cheap deal, probably league minimum, maybe some incentives. No one's going to be fooled twice. Fool me 3 times, shame on. I don't know, man. But, again, just throwing darts out there. I wouldn't say if you draft a Golladay, it should preclude you from taking a wide receiver in this very good wide receiver class, but it's the ultimate mama, I can change him situation. It really is. But that's it. There's 10 free agents for the Vikings. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.